Going to continue with our pre-summer 8-part session. My name is Dr. Shmuel Shields. I'm a nutritionist. If you have any questions, comments, or want to give any feedback to this series, please address them to events@chazak.org. And Chazak is spelled C-H-A-Z-A-Q. Okay, today we have a very interesting topic, best protein choices. Last time we did good carbs, bad carbs, so protein. Protein, again, every topic we're talking about in this 8-part mini-series is complex, leads to a lot of confusion amongst people based on the information they've gotten over the years. And it's challenging for me sometimes to try to bridge the gap, so to speak, and to try to give the emes as best as I could, with Hashem's help, to try to get us closer to what we need to be doing for better nutrition for ourselves and our families. So protein, again, is one of those topics that leads to a lot of confusion, because once people start getting into the various dietary options out there, low protein, high protein, we get very, very confused. So the way I'd like to address this is to first quote something. Moshe Rabbeinu said, "When in the evening Hashem gives you meat to eat and bread to be satiated in the morning." So meat to eat, but not to be satiated. So that this is Rashi in Shemos. The Torah is teaching a rule of conduct. Meat should not be eaten to the point of satiation. In other words, we want to tone down our dependence, so to speak, on meat and fleischiks. Most of the research today, and the way nutrition is trending, as many of you probably already know, is on a plant-based diet. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. We want to, and when it comes to plant-based, we also want to use more plant-based proteins. In the long term, they are going to be healthier. They are easier to digest, and we're less prone to health complications when we lessen the saturated fats and the animal proteins in the diet. So let's just see why that might be so. So in order to understand that, we have to take a little glimpse at anatomy and physiology. So Hashem created each creature in a certain way that are best suited for a certain way of eating. So if we take a carnivorous animal, a lion, a tiger, they were created in such a way that their anatomy and physiology supports fleischiks very well. They are great meat eaters for the following reasons. First of all, they have an acid saliva in the mouth. Acid breaks down protein. So they start to break down protein in the mouth as soon as they begin devouring and eating the meat. They also have a very short digestive tract and a very large kidneys and a large liver to quickly get the metabolic waste that is a byproduct of protein metabolism out of the body, so it doesn't build up and become toxic in the body. So I think we could see from anatomy and physiology, they're best suited for the protein diets that they have. They have a short intestinal tract, and they're best suited for the way they eat. On the other hand, human beings have much smaller kidneys, a much smaller liver, a much longer digestive tract. We have different teeth. We have alkaline saliva in the mouth, which begins the breakdown of carbohydrates in the mouth. So it could be argued, I think very reasonably and very safely, that we can consume animal products. We do have the means and the ability to digest, animal protein. But what are we best suited for, and what should the dietary makeup look mostly like? And I think there's enough evidence and research and studies to support today that a plant-based diet is going to be healthy and much better for us. So basically we want to, and we're going to sum up the last class I'm going to devote to summing this all up. So where do we get these plant-based proteins from? Because that's what I really wanted to focus on this particular segment of this 8-part series. So basically, we get plant proteins from almost all the foods that we eat. Fruits and vegetables are also a source of protein. We don't consider them protein foods, but they do have a certain amount of grams of protein. Grains contain proteins. So we do have them in many different food groups that we're eating throughout the course of the day. When we want to get into animal, let's say, protein substitutes, then we're going to shift over into an area of the what we call beans and legumes. So things like chickpeas, lentils, beans are a very good plant protein source. And they could be used as an animal protein substitute. So you could have, let's say, you make yourself a salad and you put in a half a cup of chickpeas into the salad. So there is a form of protein going into that salad. So lentils are a very nice source of plant protein. You make yourself a bowl of lentil soup, you get a nice amount of protein from the lentils. That could replace an animal protein. And then you have certain grains like quinoa, some people pronounce it quinoa, which has a nice amount of grams of protein. Even though they call it a grain, it's more like a seed. And by the way, seeds like sunflower seeds and pumpkin seeds are a nice source of protein. And then of course you have the nuts, the walnuts and the cashews and the almonds and the filiberts and hazelnuts and so on, also a nice source of protein. So you could add, in addition to those chickpeas in the salad, you could add a small handful of almonds or walnuts, and you could further bolster the protein if you want, or the nuts and seeds could be eaten as a snack to give you a protein value. Again, we're not looking to get all of our protein at one meal. It should be dispersed throughout the day. And again, if we are consuming whole foods, and we do have an awareness of what some of these plant proteins look like and what they are, we can figure ways to build them into our meals, into our snacks, and by doing that, we are not relying so heavily on the animal proteins, and we are still getting a nice amount of protein from these foods. Today they make protein pastas. Sometimes you could add a little bit of that to a salad, or you could add a little bit of that on a plate if you want to bump up the protein value. Some of them contain as much as 10 grams of protein to a serving size. Keep in mind, an egg, which is a very good source of protein, has only about 6 grams of protein. So there's many different ways to build in some of the healthier plant-type proteins. Another excellent choice would be the edamame. That's the actual soybean. You can get them frozen, you can get them in different ways. They have soy nuts, and then they make some other products from soy, from the soybean, things like tofu and tempeh, which again don't have to be eaten every day, but they can come into the diet a few times a week to give us some variety and to also limit or reduce the amount of animal protein that we do consume. So again, I think you can see there are many ways that we can incorporate some of these plant-based proteins. And when we do use an animal protein, we may want to make it a smaller amount. It doesn't have to be the main dish, maybe a few ounces instead of 8, 9, 10, 12, ounces, which is way more than we really need. So those are some ideas for us to reflect on when it comes to our protein intake, to try to reduce the portion amount of an animal protein, to use them less frequently. And if you want to prioritize what the better choices would be, in my opinion, I think fish would be your best option. So if you're cutting back on some of the other animal protein, and a couple of times a week, 2-3 times a week, you want to get a fish source of protein, and I think that's terrific. And then you have beans and legumes and lentils, nuts and seeds, some of the soy products that are out there. There are some better, protein burgers today that are not made with animal proteins. So there are a variety of ways to incorporate some of these things in. And as I mentioned, certain grains are good sources of protein also. Okay, so we are going to continue in our series. The next part of the series will be on hydration. What kind of beverages should you be drinking and how much? Okay, thank you again for joining us.